ran into the desert with nothing but fear in her heart and life growing inside her. But when the Apache found her, mercy wasn't part of his orders. Or was it? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty main street of Silver Creek, a modest frontier town nestled between rocky mesas and sparse desert vegetation. It was the spring of 1873, and the town was slowly recovering from years of Apache raids and territorial disputes. Sarah Mitchell stood on the wooden porch of the general store, one hand resting protectively on her swollen belly, the other shielding her eyes as she gazed toward the mountains. She was 22 years old, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun, and green eyes that held both determination and sorrow. 6 months pregnant and widowed for 3, Sarah had been left to manage alone when her husband Thomas had died in a mining accident. The grief still pressed heavy on her chest, but she forced herself to remain strong for the child growing within her. "Mrs. Mitchell, you shouldn't be standing in this heat," called Martha Henderson, the storekeeper's wife, a round woman with a kind face and graying hair. "Come inside and have some water." Sarah turned and managed a small smile. "Thank you, Martha. I was just watching the mail coach. I'm expecting a letter from my sister in Santa Fe." As she stepped back into the relative coolness of the store, the door swung open and Deputy Charles Brennan entered, his badge gleaming on his vest. He was a tall man in his late 30s, with a thick mustache and calculating eyes that made Sarah uncomfortable whenever they lingered on her. "Afternoon, ladies," he said, tipping his hat. His gaze fixed on Sarah. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've been meaning to speak with you about your situation." Sarah stiffened. "My situation, Deputy? A woman in your condition alone, trying to maintain that property of yours. It's not proper, and it's not safe." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to what he likely thought was a gentle tone. "You need a man to protect you, to provide for you and that baby. I've been thinking that perhaps we could come to an arrangement." The implication was clear, and Sarah felt her stomach turn. "Deputy Brennan, I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing quite well on my own." "Are you, though?" His voice hardened slightly. "That cabin is falling apart, and winter will be here before you know it. You're going to need help, and I'm offering it. I'm a respectable man with a steady position. You could do a lot worse." Before Sarah could respond, Martha interjected firmly. "The lady has given you her answer, Charles. Now, I believe you have patrol duties to attend to." Brennan's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "This conversation isn't over, Mrs. Mitchell. You'll come to see reason soon enough." He turned and left, the door slamming behind him. Sarah released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "He's been persistent lately. Ever since Thomas died, he's been circling like a vulture." Martha patted her hand. "Don't you worry about him. You have friends in this town who won't let him pressure you into anything." That evening, as Sarah walked the half-mile back to her small cabin on the outskirts of town, she contemplated her options. Martha was kind, but kindness wouldn't pay the debts Thomas had left behind, or repair the roof that leaked when it rained. She had some money saved, but it wouldn't last much longer. The mine company had offered a small settlement, barely enough to cover the funeral expenses. Her cabin came into view, modest but sturdy, built by Thomas when they'd first arrived in Silver Creek 2 years ago with dreams of making their fortune. Now those dreams lay buried with him in the town cemetery. She was lighting the oil lamp when she heard horses approaching, multiple riders moving fast. Fear gripped her. Apache raids had been rare in recent months, but they still happened. She quickly extinguished the lamp and reached for the rifle Thomas had taught her to use. Peering through the window, she saw 5 riders, but they weren't Apache. They were white men, and something about the way they moved, purposeful and coordinated, told her this wasn't a social visit. They dismounted near her small barn, speaking in low voices. Sarah's heart pounded. She recognized one of them, a man named Dutch Carpenter, who ran with a gang of outlaws that operated in the territory. The rumor in town was that Deputy Brennan sometimes looked the other way when they passed through for a price. "She's got to have something worth taking," one of them said, his voice carrying in the still night air. "Widow woman, husband was a miner, probably kept gold dust hidden somewhere." Sarah's mind raced. She had no gold, just a few coins and Thomas's pocket watch. But these men wouldn't believe that, and they wouldn't leave without searching thoroughly. She couldn't defend herself against 5 armed men. Her only option was to run. She gathered a small bag quickly, stuffing in some bread, her money, and Thomas's watch. She slipped out the back door, moving as quietly as she could through the darkness. The desert stretched before her, dangerous and unforgiving, but less threatening than the men ransacking her home behind her. She walked for what felt like hours, guided by moonlight, her boots crunching on the rocky ground. The baby shifted inside her, and she whispered soothingly, "It's all right, little one, we'll find safety, I promise." Dawn was breaking when exhaustion finally forced her to stop. She had reached a small canyon with a trickle of water running through it. She drank deeply, then found a sheltered spot between 2 large rocks where she could rest and remain hidden. Her feet ached, her back throbbed, and fear gnawed at her insides. What would she do now? She couldn't return to Silver Creek, not if Brennan was involved with those outlaws. She had nowhere to go, no family nearby, and she was carrying a child who would arrive in 3 months. The reality of her situation crashed over her, and for the first time since Thomas's death, she allowed herself to cry. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert into a furnace. Sarah dozed fitfully, her body demanding rest despite her fear. She woke to the sound of horses again, different from the night before, moving more slowly and deliberately. She pressed herself against the rock, hardly daring to breathe. 3 riders appeared at the canyon's edge. They weren't white men. They were Apache warriors, and Sarah's blood ran cold. She had heard the stories, the tales of violence and captivity. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. She was trapped. The lead rider spotted her almost immediately. He was younger than she expected, perhaps in his late 20s, with strong features and dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore traditional Apache clothing mixed with pieces of cavalry gear, likely taken in raids. He dismounted and approached slowly, his hand not on his weapon. "Please," Sarah whispered, her voice hoarse from thirst and fear. "Please don't hurt me. I'm carrying a child, his child." She placed both hands on her belly, hoping desperately that this universal sign of motherhood would invoke some mercy. The Apache warrior stopped a few feet away, studying her intently. His companions remained mounted, watching. He spoke in Apache, his tone questioning, and she shook her head helplessly. "I don't understand, please." He switched to heavily accented English. "You alone, why?" Sarah hesitated, then decided honesty was her only weapon. "Bad men came. They wanted to hurt me, to take what little I have. I ran. My husband is dead. I have nothing and nowhere to go." The warrior's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. He turned to his companions and spoke rapidly in Apache. They responded, and a brief discussion ensued. Sarah's heart hammered. Were they deciding her fate? Would they kill her quickly or take her captive? Finally, the warrior turned back to her. "I am called Apache by white men. My true name you cannot speak. You come with us." "What? No, please, I can't." "You die here," he said simply, gesturing to the merciless landscape. "No water, no food, you come, you live. Choose." Sarah stared at the Apache warrior, her mind reeling. Every story she had ever heard about Apache captives flashed through her thoughts, tales of brutality and suffering. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw no cruelty there, only a pragmatic assessment of her situation. And he was right. She would die out here alone. "If I go with you," she said, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound steady, "what will happen to me? What will happen to my baby?" Apache considered her question for a long moment. "You work. You live with people. Baby come, baby live. We not kill women with child, not our way." It wasn't much of a reassurance, but it was something. Sarah knew she had no real choice. She couldn't survive in the desert alone, and returning to Silver Creek meant facing Dutch Carpenter's gang and Deputy Brennan's unwanted advances. At least with the Apache, there was a chance, however slim. "All right," she whispered. "I'll come with you." Apache nodded and helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness, careful of her condition. He brought her water from a skin bag, and she drank gratefully. One of the other warriors brought a horse forward, and Apache lifted her onto it with ease, then mounted behind her to keep her steady. They rode for most of the day, deeper into the mountains where white settlements rarely ventured. Sarah's fear gradually gave way to exhaustion, and she found herself leaning back against Apache's solid frame, too tired to maintain her rigid posture. He didn't push her away, simply adjusted his grip to ensure she wouldn't fall. As the sun began its descent, they arrived at a hidden Apache camp nestled in a valley surrounded by high cliffs. It was larger than Sarah had expected, with perhaps 30 wickiups, the traditional dome-shaped dwellings made of wooden frames covered with brush and hides. Women tended fires, children played, and men worked on weapons and other tasks. Their arrival caused an immediate stir. People stopped what they were doing to stare at the pregnant white woman. Sarah felt dozens of eyes on her, some curious, others hostile. Apache dismounted and helped her down, then spoke to the gathering crowd in their language. His tone was authoritative, and gradually people began to return to their activities, though the sidelong glances continued. An older woman approached, her face weathered by years and sun but her eyes sharp and assessing. She and Apache exchanged words, and then she gestured for Sarah to follow her. Sarah looked at Apache uncertainly. "She is Nige," Apache said. "She teach you. You stay in her wickiup, help her. She lost daughter in raid by soldiers. She need help, you need place, is good." Sarah followed Nige to one of the larger wickiups. Inside it was surprisingly comfortable, with woven mats on the ground and baskets containing various goods. Nige indicated that Sarah should sit, then brought her food, a simple meal of roasted meat and some kind of bread made from ground seeds. Sarah ate hungrily, realizing she hadn't had a proper meal since leaving her cabin. That night, lying on a mat in Nige's wickiup, Sarah stared up at the smoke hole in the roof, watching sparks from the fire drift upward to the stars. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. "What have I done?" she whispered. "What kind of life will you have here, little one?" The days that followed established a new rhythm. Nige was a patient but demanding teacher. She showed Sarah how to gather certain plants, how to prepare food in the Apache way, how to tan hides and weave baskets. The work was hard, especially in her condition, but Nige was mindful of her pregnancy, never pushing her beyond what she could manage. Sarah learned that Apache was not just a warrior, but held a position of respect in the camp. He was the son of a chief who had been killed by American soldiers 5 years earlier, and he now led a small band of warriors who still resisted the forced relocations to reservations. The people here were the holdouts, those who refused to surrender their way of life. Apache checked on her regularly, speaking briefly in his limited English. He brought her extra food sometimes, or a better blanket when the nights grew cold. Sarah found herself watching for these visits, grateful for the familiar sound of his voice in a sea of incomprehensible Apache speech. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Sarah was gathering wood near the edge of camp when she heard raised voices. She looked up to see Apache arguing with another warrior, a man she had learned was called Cochilo. Their argument was heated, with Cochilo gesturing angrily towards Sarah. Nige appeared beside her, her expression troubled. She had been teaching Sarah some Apache words, and now she used simple English and gestures to explain. "Cochilo says you bring danger. Says soldiers follow white woman, find camp. Says you should be sent away or killed." Fear shot through Sarah. "What does Apache say?" "Apache says you stay, says you under his protection, says any who harm you answer to him." That evening, Apache came to Nige's wickiup. He sat across the fire from Sarah, his expression serious. "Cochilo right about one thing. Soldiers look for missing white woman. They think Apache take you. More reason to attack our people." Sarah's heart sank. "I'm bringing trouble to you. I'm sorry. I never meant to cause problems. You not cause problems. White men cause problems. Always they take, they kill, they break promises. They push us into smaller and smaller land, then surprised when we fight back." His voice held years of accumulated anger and grief. "But you not them. You just woman trying to survive, trying to protect child. I understand this. Why did you help me?" Sarah asked quietly. "When you found me in the canyon, you could have just left me there." Apache was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. "My woman. She was with child when soldiers came to our village 3 winters past. They said they come in peace, to talk. But they lied. They attacked. My woman, she was killed. Our child never born. His voice was level, but Sarah could hear the pain beneath it. When I see you with child alone, afraid, I think of her. I think, maybe this time child lives, mother lives, maybe something good, not just death and loss. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry for what they did to you, to your family. Not your fault, Apache said simply. But now you here, you part of this. You learn our ways, you respect our ways, you be safe. You disrespect, you make trouble, you endanger people, then Cochilo get his wish. I understand, Sarah said. I promise I'll work hard. I'll learn. I won't cause trouble. Apache nodded and stood to leave, then paused. Your name, Sarah, is good name. My woman, her name was Dasodaha. It mean going to the east. She loved to watch sunrise. He left the wiki up, leaving Sarah to contemplate the unexpected connection between them, built on shared loss and the fragile hope of new life. As spring gave way to early summer, Sarah found herself adapting to Apache life in ways she never could have imagined. Her belly grew rounder with each passing week, and the women of the camp began to treat her with a mixture of acceptance and curiosity. Naiche proved to be not just a teacher but a guardian of sorts, defending Sarah from the occasional hostile comment or gesture from those who still viewed her presence as a threat. Sarah's hands, once soft from her relatively gentle life in Silver Creek, became calloused from constant work. She learned to move efficiently, to waste nothing, to find value in every part of the plants and animals the Apache used for survival. She was beginning to understand their language, picking up words and phrases that helped her communicate more effectively. Apache continued his regular visits, and Sarah found herself looking forward to them more than she cared to admit. Their conversations grew longer and more personal. He told her about his childhood, about learning to hunt and fight from his father, about the old ways before the white settlers came in overwhelming numbers. She told him about her life in Missouri before coming west, about meeting Thomas, about their dreams of building something lasting in the frontier. One evening, as they sat outside Naiche's wiki up watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of orange and purple, Apache asked, "You miss your people, your old life?" Sarah considered the question carefully. I miss some things. I miss feeling safe without constantly looking over my shoulder. I miss understanding everyone around me without having to think so hard about every word. But the life I had in Silver Creek, the town itself? No, I don't miss that. There was nothing left for me there except debt and a man who saw me as property to be claimed. This deputy you speak of before, he tried to own you? In his way, yes. He saw a pregnant widow as an easy target, someone vulnerable he could manipulate into marriage. He didn't care about me or my baby. He just wanted control, and probably whatever little property Thomas left behind. Apache's expression darkened. Men who use power to take what others not willing to give. They are cowards. Same in any people, white or Apache. Real strength is protection of those weaker, not exploitation of them. You protected me, Sarah said softly. You didn't have to, but you did. Why? And please don't just say it reminded you of your wife. I think there's more to it than that. He was quiet for so long that Sarah thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, When I find you in Canyon, I see fear in your eyes, but also fight. You ready to defend yourself and child, even knowing you have no chance. That courage, that mother love, is sacred thing. To ignore it, to let you die, would dishonor memory of all mothers, including mine, including Dasodaha. So I bring you here. And now, Sarah asked, do you regret that decision? Cochilo certainly thinks you should. Cochilo afraid. He lost 2 sons to white soldiers. His fear make him angry, make him want revenge on any white person. I understand his pain, but I not let it make me blind. You not enemy, you survivor like us. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a recognition of shared experience, of mutual respect that was slowly transforming into something deeper. Sarah felt her heart beat faster and looked away, confused by the sudden rush of feelings. This was wrong, wasn't it? Thomas had been dead only 5 months. She was carrying his child. And Apache was, well, he was Apache. A man from a completely different world. A man her former townspeople would call savage and enemy. But he had shown her more genuine kindness and respect in these weeks than Deputy Brennan had in 2 years. More understanding than most of the so-called civilized people in Silver Creek. He had given her safety when she had none, had defended her presence when others questioned it, had shared his own grief to help her feel less alone in hers. The baby kicked hard and Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her belly. Apache immediately moved closer, concern on his face. Something wrong? No, no, Sarah said, smiling despite herself. Just a particularly strong kick. The baby's getting restless. I think he or she is running out of room in there. May I? Apache asked, gesturing toward her belly. Sarah hesitated only a moment before nodding. He placed his hand gently on her stomach, and almost immediately the baby kicked again, right against his palm. A look of wonder crossed his face, softening his usually stoic expression. Strong child. Fighter. Like mother. I hope this child knows peace, Sarah said quietly. I hope he or she grows up in a world where people don't have to run and hide, where babies aren't killed before they're born, where mothers don't have to fear for their children every single day. I hope this too, Apache said, but hope and reality often different things. Still, we try. We protect our people, our children, our future, best we can, is all anyone can do. That night, Sarah lay awake long after the camp had grown quiet. Her feelings for Apache were becoming undeniable, and that terrified her. She hadn't come here looking for romance. She hadn't expected to feel anything for anyone so soon after Thomas's death. Guilt warred with the growing affection in her heart. Was she betraying Thomas's memory? Or was she simply a widow finding unexpected comfort and connection in the most unlikely of places? The next morning, runners arrived at the camp with troubling news. A cavalry unit had been spotted 2 days' ride to the east, questioning people about a missing pregnant white woman named Sarah Mitchell. They were offering a reward for information leading to her recovery, claiming she had been kidnapped by Apache raiders. The camp went into immediate action, preparing for a possible move to a more hidden location. Apache gathered his warriors to discuss strategy. Sarah found herself at the center of a heated council meeting, with Cochillo once again arguing loudly that she should be released and sent back to her people, before she brought destruction upon them all. Apache stood and spoke with the authority of a leader. Sarah couldn't understand all the words, but Naiche, sitting beside her, translated quietly. Apache says you not bargaining peace to be traded. You not prisoner to be released. You under his protection, you member of this group now. He says those who want you gone must go through him first. Cochillo stood as well, his face twisted with anger. He spoke rapidly, gesturing wildly, and Sarah caught enough words to understand he was questioning Apache's judgment, suggesting that his decision was clouded by personal feelings rather than what was best for the people. The tension in the wiki-up was palpable. Other warriors shifted uncomfortably, some nodding at Cochillo's words, others looking to Apache with loyalty in their eyes. Sarah realized with a sinking heart that she was causing a rift in the community, potentially weakening them at a time when they needed unity most. She stood, her heart pounding, and spoke in her halting Apache, supplemented with English. Please, I don't want to cause division among you. If my presence brings danger, if my being here threatens your children, then I will go. I will turn myself over to the soldiers and tell them I was never kidnapped, that I ran away on my own and got lost in the desert. I won't let them use me as an excuse to attack you. Apache turned to her, his expression fierce. You not go. You not strong enough to travel far. Baby come soon. You go now. You and child die. I not allow this. But he's right, Sarah said, gesturing to Cochillo. The soldiers are looking for me. If they find this camp, people will die, maybe children will die, and it will be because of me. I can't live with that. Apache stepped closer to Sarah, his voice dropping but losing none of its intensity. You think soldiers need excuse to attack us? You think if you not here, they leave us in peace? No. They want our land. They want us on reservation where we slowly die of disease and hunger and loss of spirit. They will come whether you here or not. Only difference is, with you here, we know they come soon. We prepare. Is better than being surprised. The logic was sound, but Sarah's guilt remained. Naiche stood and spoke, her voice carrying authority despite her age. She gestured to Sarah as she spoke, and others began to nod. When she finished, Apache translated, "Naiche says you work hard. You learn our ways. You show respect. She says you carry innocent life that's sacred to our people. She says Great Spirit bring you to us for reason, and we not refuse his gift. She says any who harm you or force you to leave are defying will of Great Spirit and dishonoring our traditions regarding pregnant women and mothers." Cochillo looked furious but said nothing more. Naiche's words had invoked spiritual authority that even he wouldn't challenge directly. The council ended with an agreement to move the camp to a more defensible location in the mountains, a place the soldiers would find nearly impossible to reach without being spotted long before they arrived. The next morning, the entire camp mobilized with practiced efficiency. Wiki-ups were dismantled, possessions packed, and within hours they were moving through the mountains like ghosts. Sarah rode on a gentle mare, with Apache leading the horse and staying close to ensure she didn't fall. The baby seemed to sense the tension, moving restlessly inside her. They traveled for 2 days, finally arriving at a hidden canyon with steep walls and only one narrow entrance that could be easily defended. The location had water from a spring and enough flat ground for the camp. As the people began rebuilding their wiki-ups, Sarah helped where she could, though her movement was increasingly limited by her advanced pregnancy. That evening, as Sarah sat resting against a smooth boulder, Apache approached with some fresh meat and fruit. "You need strength," he said simply, handing her the food. "Baby, come any day now." "I know," Sarah said, placing a hand on her enormous belly. "I'm frightened. Childbirth is dangerous even with a doctor. Out here with no real medical help." "You have help," Apache assured her. "Naiche is skilled midwife. She helped bring many babies into world, including me. She know what to do. And I will be nearby." "You?" Sarah couldn't help but smile slightly. "What do you know about childbirth?" "Nothing," he admitted with the hint of a smile. "But I know about being present for people who matter. I not let you face this alone." The words hung in the air between them. People who matter. Sarah looked up at him, seeing the concern in his eyes, the protective stance of his body, the way his hand hovered near hers as if wanting to offer comfort, but uncertain if it would be welcome. "Apache," she said softly, "I need to tell you something. These past weeks being here, getting to know you and your people, I've felt something I didn't expect to feel. Something I'm not sure I should feel, given everything." He sat down beside her, his attention fully focused on her. "What you feel." Sarah took a deep breath. "I care about you. More than I should, probably. You saved my life, yes, but it's more than gratitude. You've shown me kindness, respect, understanding. You've shared your pain with me, trusted me with your memories of Dasodaha. You've defended me when others wanted me gone. And somehow, despite all the reasons this makes no sense, despite coming from such different worlds, I find myself wanting to be near you, wanting to hear your voice, wanting to know what you're thinking." She looked away, embarrassed. "I'm sorry if that's inappropriate or unwelcome. I know I'm carrying another man's child, and I know we're from different peoples and—" He placed his hand over hers, stopping her flow of words. "Sarah, I feel same. I not expect this either. When Dasodaha die, I think part of me die too. I think I never feel anything again except anger and loss. But you bring something back to life inside me. Your courage, your strength, your kindness to my people even when some not kind to you. The way you protect child you carry, the way you adapt and learn and survive. I see you and I remember what it is to hope for tomorrow, not just fight to survive today." Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. "What do we do? Where can this possibly go? Your people and mine are at war. The soldiers are looking for me. The world won't understand or accept us." "World not need to understand," Apache said firmly. "We understand. That what matters. My people, they see you now. They see you work, see you learn, see you respect our ways. They accept you as one of us. If you choose to stay, if you choose to be with me, to let me help raise your child as my own, they will accept this." "And what about when the baby is born?" Sarah asked. "What about the future? Will we spend our entire lives running and hiding?" Apache sighed, his expression troubled. I not know. I wish I could promise you safety, promise you easy life, but I cannot. What I can promise is that I protect you and child with my life. I teach child to be strong, to survive, to honor both parts of heritage, white and Apache. I be father to child if you allow it, and love child as my own. Sarah felt a kick, strong and insistent, and she guided Apache's hand to the spot. They sat in silence, feeling the life moving within her, a life that represented both hope and uncertainty. Thomas was a good man, Sarah said quietly. He would want his child to be loved and protected. I think if he could know the situation, if he could see you and know your heart, he would be grateful that we're not alone. You honor his memory by surviving, Apache said, by being strong for child, by choosing life over death, hope over despair. This is what he would want. 2 days later, as dawn broke over the canyon, Sarah woke to the unmistakable sensation of her water breaking. The contractions followed quickly, intense and regular. Naiche took charge immediately, sending women to gather supplies and prepare the wickiup. Apache paced outside, his usual calm demeanor fractured by worry. The labor was long and difficult. Sarah cried out in pain, grasping Naiche's hands as the older woman spoke soothingly in Apache, words that Sarah didn't fully understand, but found comforting nonetheless. The sun climbed high, and then began its descent. Women came and went, bringing water, offering support, but as evening approached and the baby still hadn't come, Sarah began to fear that neither she nor the child would survive. I can't, she gasped between contractions. I can't do this anymore. Naiche spoke firmly, and one of the younger women translated. She says you are strong like mountain lion. She says your child is fighter, taking time to prepare for difficult world. She says you must not give up now, so close to meeting your little one. Apache appeared at the entrance to the wickiup, breaking protocol by entering during the birth. His eyes met Sarah's, and the fear she saw there, the desperate concern, gave her a surge of determination. She would not give up. She would not leave him alone again, would not let this child die before taking its first breath. With a final tremendous effort, as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sarah brought her child into the world. The baby's cry pierced the evening air, strong and indignant, and Sarah collapsed back against the supporting hands behind her, exhausted beyond measure but filled with overwhelming relief. Boy, Naiche announced with satisfaction. Strong, healthy boy. They cleaned the baby and wrapped him in soft hide before placing him in Sarah's arms. She looked down at her son, at his tiny features and shock of dark hair, at his perfect little fingers that grasped instinctively at her touch. Hello, little one, she whispered. Welcome to this world. I'm your mother, and I promise I will love you and protect you every single day of your life. Apache knelt beside them, his eyes filled with wonder as he looked at the baby. He beautiful, he said softly. Perfect. Would you like to hold him? Sarah asked. Apache looked startled, then carefully took the baby into his arms. The infant settled immediately, as if recognizing safety and strength. Apache spoke to him in Apache, words that sounded like promises and blessings, and Sarah felt her heart swell with emotion at the sight. Over the following weeks, Sarah recovered her strength while learning to care for her newborn son. She had named him Thomas James Mitchell, honoring his father, but Apache had also given him an Apache name, Kaylee, meaning sparrowhawk, for the fierce cry he made when hungry or displeased. The baby thrived, and the camp celebrated his presence as a symbol of hope and continuity. Apache was an attentive and protective presence, helping Sarah when she needed it, watching over both mother and child with devotion that made it clear to everyone that he considered them his family. The resistance to Sarah's presence had evaporated. She was now simply Sarah, mother of little Kaylee, woman who belonged to Apache, member of their community. One evening, as summer reached its full glory and the canyon was bathed in golden light, Apache took Sarah's hand. I have something to ask you. In my people's tradition, there is ceremony for man and woman who choose to be together, to build life as partners. It not same as white marriage, but it is binding, sacred. I want to perform this ceremony with you, if you willing. I want to formally claim you as my woman, and I want to claim Keeley as my son. I want world to know you are mine, and I am yours." Sarah looked at her son, sleeping peacefully in his cradleboard, then back at Apache. She thought of her journey, from the comfortable life in Missouri, to the frontier dreams in Silver Creek, to the loss and grief of Thomas's death, to the desperate flight into the desert, to this hidden canyon where she had found not just survival but belonging, not just shelter but love. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I want that. I want to be your family, officially and completely." The ceremony took place 3 days later, with the entire camp in attendance. Naiche presided, speaking words in Apache about partnership, responsibility, and the joining of 2 lives into one path. Sarah and Apache exchanged gifts, she giving him a carefully woven basket she had made under Naiche's instruction, he giving her a necklace he had crafted with beads and stones that held significance in his culture. They shared a meal, feeding each other as others sang traditional songs, and when it was done, they were husband and wife in the eyes of his people. That night, in their own wickiup with Kaylee sleeping nearby, Apache held Sarah close. "I never think I would have this again," he admitted quietly. "After Dasodaha, I believe that part of my life was over forever. But you bring light back into darkness. You give me reason to think about future, not just past." "You gave me back my life," Sarah replied. "You gave me safety, belonging, purpose. You gave my son a father and me a partner. You chose to see me as a person, not an enemy or a prize or a burden. That is a gift beyond measure." They lay together, listening to the sounds of the camp settling for the night, the crackling of fires, the distant call of a night bird. Sarah knew that challenges still lay ahead. The soldiers would keep searching, the conflict between their peoples would continue, and life in the hidden canyon would never be easy. But she also knew that she had found something rare and precious, a man who loved her completely, a community that had embraced her, and a future that held hope. Little Kaylee stirred and made a small sound. Sarah rose to tend to him, and Apache followed, both of them hovering over their son with the protective devotion of parents. As she nursed the baby, with Apache's hand resting gently on her shoulder, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. She had come to the frontier seeking a new life, had lost everything she thought mattered, had faced death in the desert, and had emerged with something far more valuable than gold or land or social standing. She had found love, acceptance, and family in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. She had learned that home wasn't a place or a people, but rather the presence of those who truly saw you, valued you, and stood beside you through whatever storms life might bring. And as she looked at Apache, at the way he gazed at Kaylee with wonder and pride, she knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, as a family, as partners, as 2 hearts that had found each other against all odds and chosen love over fear, hope over despair, and unity over division.